Good. So just make yourself comfortable. We'll sit quietly for a few moments and just open up this space of quiet contemplation, of feeling more than thinking. And becoming curious as to how you are feeling way, way deep down. And now the recognition of yoga. And I'd like to open up with a sutra from this very small, slim, concise book of sutras that I mentioned a few times. This has become my primary study right now because it's so elegantly simple, but so profoundly deep. And this is a very new translation with just a delightful sense of clarity. And often it's challenging to take some of these out of context because they're just 20 sutras, so they're very, very concentrated. This, of course, I'm referring to the Prachabinja Hiradyam, also known as the essence of recognition. But there was something in today's reading of it that's really struck me that I would just like to share with you. So the translation of the Sanskrit is, the individual mind is realized to be the absolute reality consciousness as it acquires full knowledge of the nature through yoga. In the commentary, as you engage in yogic exploration, you can recognize the fact that your mind consciousness, which you have been identifying with as being your limited self, is in fact the unlimited absolute consciousness, and all functioning that has seemed to occur is in fact the spontaneous play of its nature. So that kind of struck me this morning as I was reading that, and I was just watching the sun set on the beauty of the snapdragons and listening to the bird song and just feeling the coolness of the wind. How interesting this is, that what basically this sutra is saying, that all of consciousness, all of the reality, awareness, consciousness, and it doesn't matter what words we use, divine presence, is spontaneously expressing itself through us in the nature of play, the spontaneous play of its nature. So I think this is a worthy thing to begin to explore, because I do understand, especially in these times, and as we hold on to different contractions from our past and different concerns about the future, there is a tendency for a sense of seriousness to become embodied, to become imprinted, to become somewhat habitual. What this sutra is asking us to explore is that all of creation, the creativity of the universe, is this open, divine, conscious awareness that is just spontaneously playing through us, just for the sake of play, the sake of enjoyment. So this is just so so worthy to allow these things we can take so seriously that are always changing. Yes, we can see that quite clearly. We just need to open our eyes a bit, that the seriousness on some level becomes a choice. It becomes a habit. And can we open up ourself in whatever it is we're involved with? And it doesn't mean we can't be responsible, certainly, and have a sober demeanor when we need to. But at some level, this cosmic consciousness is just a play. It's just expressing to enjoy and to be interested and to explore itself. Yes? So let's just leave it at that. So let's get started by moving. We're going to open up with a backward bend, and we're going to simply, through the class, we're going to thread this backward bend and just deepen it. So we're going to start here, which for me is relatively mild. If you have the large bolster, this would be preferable. If you do not have the large bolster, then what I would like you to do is just get some pillows and build something about the length of this bolster. So this is basically from my hips to the back of my head. So we want the whole upper body to be supported so we can just tuck into the lower back. So what you would have to do is just, very simple. You're just making, so I have these pillows here about the length of this bolster, and we'll tuck things in and just put pillows and blankets accordingly to build that up. Yes, so I'm just going to show this with the bolster because it's easier. So whether you have the bolster or the pillows and blankets, I would just like you to bring that bolster in towards your lower back, sitting on the floor, and we're going to lay the body over the bolster so the back of the head is supported. Two things you might want to consider if indeed, when I say this is mild, I'm only speaking about my condition in the moment. That can always change. So this may not be so mild when we relax over it and we have this tucked into the lumbar area. If it's feeling like it's too much, then bring in something, a pad to sit on. So you put something under the hips, then the buttocks are not on the floor, they're on this towel now, and this can ease things up a bit. You're just lessening the compression into the lower spine. The other choice is to, if you're feeling a little stressed in the neck where it's going to be troublesome and it doesn't feel quite safe and it feels a little pinchy, then you can put a blanket behind the head as well. You could also roll it and put it under the neck, but really just so we can feel the compression really starting to soothe into the lower back. Yeah, so we want this to be soothing. This position should be relatively anchoring and soothing, so we can just kind of ease in, and then later in the class we're going to deepen these backward bends, but this is just a nice way to just relax into it. And then if you have the pillows, same thing, make sure the buttocks is on the floor, the length of the torso is supported from underneath, and you're feeling a relatively mild compression in the lower back. And I suppose one of the things I mean by mild compression is that your experience is such that there's no question that you would injure yourself or feel unsafe, that there's just as much energy of relaxing and softening and really able to start to slow and quiet everything down. So the body's responding as much to that safety and relaxation as it is to this mild compression. And this is why, we surround ourselves with bolsters and towels and blankets. So, whatever is unique to you, the way your lower back is holding, whatever it's holding, you can prop yourself up appropriately so you can have this balance. And then, of course, if that changes over time, if this is an invitation from the body itself, then again, you can make adjustments accordingly. And certainly, part of what I'm saying, and if there is any practice with this, we're practicing, often subtle qualities in how we approach the mind and body, but certainly primary is that we're practicing patience. We're practicing patience to allow the body to, first of all, relax and respond in whatever way it's going to respond, and then inevitably make some changes along the way. So this, when we're, dealing with this, these fibers of tension and these interwoven holdings, if you will, these holding patterns in the body, it just takes tremendous patience. And oftentimes we can invite in, very nuanced and detailed ways to approach the breath. I often say that the breath is a catalyst with infinite applications. That's something to consider. But we can also begin, and especially at the beginning of a practice, it's lovely to just start to cultivate a very genuine and deep respect for the breath. And as we do begin to sink into a quiet place of rest and relaxation, we can just see directly for ourselves that we don't really need a theme. An intention is not necessary, because the theme always is the same in our yoga, is the exploration of the nature of our sensations and the direct experience that every sensation is a movement of pure intelligence. Every sensation is a movement of pure intelligence. Very slowly and intuitively, just begin to bring your arms up over your head, and just be aware of all of the micro movement. This is why it's so good to go slowly. So the weight of the arms over the head is going to push and pull and open and again create more of these sensations of pure intelligence. So we're just using again now the weight here to evoke something, and what's being evoked is also what's being explored. And just as long as this feels like you can explore from a place of relaxation. So if you want to release the arms at any point or just one, or bend the elbows a bit, so you can relax those arms anytime that you would like, or you can just keep them there if this feels appropriate. And before we come out, we'll come out in a bit. I just want to say something so you can take this in. One of the things that I know is very often when you come out of a pose, there's a temptation to immediately go into some movement. Typically, especially a backward bend, we want to go into a reclining twist or whatever it is, a child's position. So what I'm suggesting is to come out of these yin poses and just simply rest. It is best to rest after the pose. And this doesn't have to be a really long time, the whole time that we're resting. But what we're doing is we're compressing into a very tight, complicated, layered mesh system that's holding everything together, particularly muscles and organs. So when we're coming out, there's a recalibrating of that. There's a softening of that. There's a whole cascade of hormonal and chemical events happening. So if we come out and we immediately go into micro movement or even larger movement, that fascia has to then respond to that. Even if it feels good, what we're attempting to do is we're attempting to disturb the unwinding that can happen at a very micro level. So this is what, Ronnie and I were talking about, is that we want to be very sensitive to this inner movement of the body and how the compression is just one part of the posture. The rest, the release, the relaxation is another, not just for us to relax, psychologically and emotionally, but the body is responding and we want to feel that response. Then if the body invites us to have some movement and we want to explore, but it's not a reaction to the tightness or whatever the posture evoked, and then wanting to sort of undo it or move away from it quickly. So the rest, just as important, it's a rhythm that we're really cultivating in this practice of contracting and expanding. Contracting and expanding. And we want to honor that rhythm and we want to learn about that rhythm because that rhythm is primary to the life force. Oh, perfect timing. So let's come on out. You can put your feet on the floor so the lower back feels nice and stable. And then you may want to have a little bit of just, the movement right before we come out, just is to make sure the muscular tension, it feels safe. So what I'm talking about is once we then release out of the pose, it's best to lie down, let the chi evenly distribute through the joints and the body, and just come into a place of rest. And just feel this, this non-verbal linguistic energy of contraction and expansion. Although I must use language to talk about it, I'm pointing to something that is beyond language. So if this first thing that I say offends any of your quite precious belief systems around this, that's just as valuable to explore as tightness in the lower back. So if something pushes up against a belief system that we have, instead of contracting, we always have the option to see where that belief system is really rooted, see what we're holding on to. And so I'm just going to open with this. And what I want to talk is I want to put a little bit more framework around this exploration of sensations. Yeah. So there really is no low vibration. There really is no high vibration. And I know this is very common to use these terms when we're talking, about our moods or our, proclivities towards the world or our circumstances in life. That, wow, this person or that thing, or I'm feeling a low vibration, or that's a high vibration. That's really nonsense. There is no low vibration. There is no high vibration. There's only life energy. There's only the vibration, if you will. There's only the sensation of life before mind or thought can do anything with it. I'm talking about raw sensation, energy in your body. And then from there, so this is what we're attempting to explore. We're attempting to explore this raw sensation, the body as energy. So then there are layers of distortion to that. And this is where we get into the exploration. This is where the mind comes in to start to label it. Yeah, so we'll feel something, we'll feel these, this essential sensation, as I'm calling this a raw sensation. And the mind will come in and want to call it, sadness or fear or anger, frustration, confusion, guilt, shame. These are all secondhand words. These are all something that we have to intentionally, or more accurately, habitually superimpose on the sensation that has arisen. And then the second layer to that is we begin to judge it. We begin to judge these labels as, well, low vibration, or this is negative, or this is bad, or this is evil, or even dangerous. Vibration knows none of these. Vibration is just vibrating. Sensation is, again, that pure intelligence of information being offered to you. So the mind comes in and labels, the judgment then comes in and judges those labels. And then typically the third layer, which is very interesting, is we then have to typically blame this on someone or something or ourself. Like, what caused this negative feeling? What caused this low vibration? And then if we do blame ourselves, which is, fairly common among us, then we will be then directed into a realm of self-help. So what the meditation of our yoga is basically to strip away everything that is secondhand. Stay with the purity of this intelligence of this raw sensation and just be able to feel it. Continually just coming back to the body, coming back to the sensations, coming back to what is actually alive. And these raw sensations are never good or bad. They just simply are. And this opens up space, and I'm not, as those of you that have, taken class with me before, I'm not suggesting that any of this be taken as theory or a philosophy, but to explore this, to explore these layers when sensations arise. Am I distorting them by labeling them? Am I judging the label? And then am I wanting to express them outward in a projection or a blame? And so we come back to this idea that there is no low or there's no high vibration. There's simply vibration. And it's morphing through us, through our bones, actually, through our cells, through our tissues, through our organs. Okay, so let's come on up. That was a nice long rest. Yes, good. And let's get a hold of, if you have a small bolster, the small bolster would be very good to use for this, but not necessary. So the small bolster, if you do not have the small bolster, then just please take a blanket or a towel or a pillow or something, and you could just roll the blanket up. Yeah. So what we're going to do here is we're going to, let's extend the right leg out in front of you in a nice relaxed way. And I want to take this uh, yeah, extend the right leg out, and then take that roll or the blanket and just put it under the left knee. Yeah, so the left knee is being supported. And then we'll take that right leg that we extended and we'll bring it in to right about where that, I don't usually place this in this a specific way, but there's a tendency I know for a lot of us to pull it way, way into the hip and tighten this right hip. So I am suggesting to keep it out a little bit. So right where that either the small bolster is or the roll blanket under the left knee. So this left femur, the left hamstring is released a bit. There's some release here. And then we will come forward from here. So nice and slow. Again, slower is always better. Rest is always best. Just kind of sink into this, especially after that lengthy backward bend. There's going to be residue there of the backward bend. So if you need some support, pillows or blankets up front, always good idea to, make sure that you are allowing a softening into this residue of what's happening in the lower spine. So ideally, just as we approach our edge, this is when we start to soften. We don't approach the edge and then apply more force to deepen it into some egoic aesthetic. We approach our edge in yin, and then we just start to soften and just realize no agenda, no attention, just kind of sink in and relax. What was I saying a couple of classes ago from that lovely Van Morrison album? No guru, no method, no teacher. And that brings us back to what I'm describing as meditation, is just to remove everything that is secondhand. So a label, a judgment, any distortion that you are bringing into a sensation, into a vibration, just simply in any way that you choose, what your practice is to remove that. And sometimes what I do is I just allow the distortion, I allow the labeling of it to kind of merge with the feeling. Like if I'm like, oh, wow, that hurts. That doesn't feel good. That's bad. I wish that wasn't there. I just let all of that imagery, that language sort of melt into the sensation as the sensation is softening. So I don't force it. And I try not to judge it, but I just see that the power, the sheer power of relaxing into the body allows us just a depth of being with this raw sensation. It's not a technique, it's a direct experience. So everyone's going to do it a little bit differently. And certainly I'm not just talking physically. As we know, yoga is a container for the most complete exploration of our sense of self that there really is, in my opinion. So what yoga is saying is literally not just physically, but who you are at your most essential is just simply beyond concepts of low vibration and high vibration, of good and bad, of positive and negative, and even of happiness and sadness. That yoga is simply saying that you are a non-dual being with room for everything. And another word for this this container of yoga would be unconditional love. it's almost as if there's, there's the expansiveness of the sky, and then a big storm comes along. The 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 sky doesn't care. It's just a storm. It's just energy. It's just sensation to the sky. So don't be the storm running away from the sky. Whatever arises, the level of raw, visceral, intelligent sensation, just simply be with it.
So let's come on up from here, please. And I just want to add something on here. So you can take that bolstering out from under this left knee, either the bolster or the blanket, whatever you have, and just let's keep that left leg extended out. And then we're going to take this right leg and just give it a little breath here by extending it out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to attempt to then bend it back. And I want to give you a few options here. So if this is, the way that I have it now is my knees are together, my thighs are almost touching, so it's just bent straight back, yeah? So we can come forward here. So we could come forward here, or we can play with the range of motion of this right leg and begin to open it out a bit, especially if this is just too much for the knee. So instead of avoiding this completely, you can open this knee. It's like, okay. And now what obviously we're doing is we're now externally rotating this right hip. So we're involving the hips. What we're also doing though is we're involving different parts of the three hamstrings on the left leg. So this is going to be very different than this. So if you'd like this to keep this, the knees together and come forward, experiment with that, yes. If you want to open this a bit, and as much as you feel called to do, I mean, just a little bit to release pressure in the knee, or if you want to open it all the way and just come forward, it sort of just depends on how this hip is doing. If you're opening this, you don't need to necessarily, if you're going to lean to the left, obviously you want support for a bolster on the left, but you can just kind of play with the upper body weight. And you may see what I'm saying, that this tugging of this right hip is affecting those hamstrings in a different way than if we just did a forward fold. So find whatever is working best, just a lot of leeway here. Try to relax the shoulders and just sink into it. Use whatever supports you need, and don't be too concerned about the awkwardness of it. Really integrate the awkwardness of it into just the overall exploration of discomfort. My little cat came running in here. His name is Freddie, little dog Mercury. And the only time he really runs in and looks a little freaked and he's staring out is when bears come by, because he's a black cat. And I think he must think that the bears are like big cats out there, and he's never seen cats that big. So don't want to get into the head of my kitty, but it's very tempting. And I do understand this is what I was trying to bring your attention to, that sometimes the sheer awkwardness can have a flavor of discomfort that we really don't want to go into. But what we want to, almost imagine it as is just another doorway into an area that we're not really familiar with exploring. So if something's a little unfamiliar or awkward, try to relax around it. This is why we play with, and we're not so technique oriented. So we play with the angles of range of motion. So if something is unfamiliar, we want to get some information from that. We want to feel, ideally we're working with the skeletal system, the muscular system, and the myofascial system, the fascial system. So how they all intertwine and tug and pull. This would be your body. Okay, so let's come on up from here. And just nice and slow. Just this untangling of how the hips torque in this pose is really interesting. So you take note of the hips. And let's take that right leg and unfold it and bring it around front, and just have a little bit of movement. We'll do the other side before we take a rest. So what I'm suggesting, on the left side, I use a rolled towel. And so on this side, I'll just use this small bolster. So we're just going to place that small bolster under the right knee this time. And then I'm suggesting to take the left foot and put it just approximately at the knee. I'm putting it like right up against the end of the bolster. If you need, less or more or something, again, just let your body be the guide. And then coming forward, nice and soft, nice and slow. So, feel the approach of the edge, relax the head into the neck. And then as you approach that edge, just begin to soften, begin to support and bolster, and just find a position and a depth that is always uniquely appropriate to you. And if we are able to start to loosen up the habits of labeling these direct sensations, and it is very possible, and so much of our relationship to what we're feeling in the body, it really is habitual. So we just play with this a bit. We play with why we label what we label, why we judge what we label, how we blame what we label and judge. But if we're able to really start to feel this, the rawness, I'm using the word raw because sometimes it is just, it's everything is absent except this energy, this vibrational pulsation. But it's the sensations themselves are the same, just as life, the same as the Big Bang, the movement and the swirling of the planets and the stars, rain coming out of a cloud, the way plants grow, waves in the ocean, the intelligence of the sensations in your body is the same intelligence as life itself. It's not good, it's not bad, it's not negative, it's not low vibration. It's the pulsation of the brilliance, the divinity, and the intelligence of life itself. I think part of these habits, we often think that if we can label the sensation, we can find it. If we can find it, we can fix it. But I invite you to try to find it. Try to find it even without labeling it. Labeling it is not finding it, it's labeling it. And then labeling it begins a story about it. So without referencing a label or a story, whatever these sensations that are, bubbling up, see if you can actually find them. So let's come on up from here, please. And same thing on this side. First of all, let's just extend this leg out. So we're going to rebend it, so we don't want it to stay too bent for too long. And then the choice is to bend it back so the knees are relatively together. This we're calling more, if you want to at some point in the future reference the positions, more of a half saddle, and we can go back or forward in this. As we open this left leg out, then it goes into a half frog, Why we call them that, I don't know. Just sort of random. So just extend that out, just like you did on the other side. Again, if you're going over to the right, as much support up here. So we don't want to just slump too much over to the right. I know that can feel really good. We want to come more of the weight over the leg. It really gets into that intricacy and interwovenness of these three hamstrings. So just whatever is appropriate. Or if you're just able to relax in the middle here, that's fine too. Or like I said, if you want to just keep them together and come forward, just all of these options in this pose. But just to say, the overall reason why we have these very unusual butterfly and half frog and names like this is to allow the exploration from the yin perspective to not trigger postures we might know from a yang practice, because some of them are very similar but have very specific alignments depending on what style you've studied. So we're trying to let go of the idea of universal alignment, and yin really is a deep questioning of even the wisdom of universal alignment because of skeletal variations, and really explore individual alignment. So these postures are always very just suggestive, and the invitation always is to fit your body in. So we're not really concerned with the shape or the depth. We're concerned with what raw sensations are being evoked. And that's really the opening in the study. Good. So let's come out nice and slowly. Just allow your body to release. Let your body relax open. You can take this left leg and straighten it out. And let's lie down and take a rest. And allow as much space as you can for this, this somatic exploration, and don't get caught up in the idea that when I say sensations,
that it only pertains to, that one point where the posture evokes something and it's ow or wow, that's tight, that kind of thing. I mean, certainly those are, worthy of our consideration. But even when you're breathing, if you just ease out of your range of motion with your respiratory diaphragm, you breathe a little more consciously, there's just an incredible flow of sensations simply from the breath. And also knowing that, every one of our thoughts is going to reverberate in the body. So this can be a very coarse and just a very coarse exploration of density, and it can be an incredibly refined exploration of sensation of things we're hearing, the quality of sound, the quality of the temperature on our skin, how we can breathe through the nose and evoke sensation in the nasal passages. Just it's almost endless, this vibrating physicality, this container of somatic intelligence. So the invitation, like I've been saying, is at the level of the sensations wherever they seem to be, not at the labeling of them or the judging of them. No low or high vibration, no good or bad sensations, just raw sensations, as if allow yourself sometimes to be the storm in the sky. The sky doesn't care. The sky is just allowing you to play the part of a storm. It's okay. And also, I've been exploring at the level, and this has been a long time exploration, especially years ago reading, what's his name? The Body Tells the Truth, or Bessel van der Kolk. I'm not getting his name right, but many of you have read his work. Bessel van der Kolk or something like that. I think you know what I mean. But just that the idea that the body, and I'm also making the distinction, not just the self-imagery body that we have, the ideas about the body, but the body as raw sensation, this is the truth. The noise of opinion and diagnosis and labeling, that's not the truth. That is a distortion, I'm calling it. So we want to know the truth of the body. We want to know how to be with our sensations non-conceptually and non-linguistically, because there's truth embedded into the vibration of the body. There's intelligence, there's wisdom. And also, along those lines of study, with that author and book I just totally mispronounced, is the work of Arnold Mindell, because he delves into this emotionally, is the feeling our sensations at an emotional texture and not having to distort them or disturb them. And what does that feel like? And the truth embedded within the discomfort of an emotion. So the truth embedded within the discomfort of a physical sensation or an emotion or even a psychological preoccupation. How do we not distort these and just go directly to the root of what we're feeling? Quite beautiful. Okay, so let's come on up, please, if you will. And I did say we're going to deepen these backward bends progressively. So I'm going to show it with the pillows and blankets as well. But if you have a bolster, let's start there, and then you can go into it while I'm describing the
the pillows and blankets. So if you have two of the bolsters, the set, take the bolster the way we had it long from the pelvis up to the head and put that small bolster over it. So that's one option. Yeah. And this has some intensity to it because it's going to arch that lower spine even more than without it, obviously. You can also bring that down a bit and put a roll, a much smaller roll. So this is smaller. Well, maybe not. Maybe this is smaller than that bolstering. Or surprisingly, what works well is to just take a blanket and fold it over the end. So you wouldn't think this would add much compression, but it certainly does. So we're going to either add the bolster over, a rolled bit of blanket, or a blanket just folded over. And then just the same thing, we're going to sit and keep the feet on the floor. And you will see, I feel the difference already, just more compression. So play around with this. And again, with the head, you may want to explore if the cervical spine feels safe, or you may want to bring it up so it's not as pinchy or, just so delicate up there. So, be careful with that. So let's see what this would look like if you don't have the bolsters. So what I would consider then, because what I showed last time is building something up so the upper body can be supported. I think I did something like this. Yeah. So you just have to, improvise. So nice to have those bolsters. But so what I'm hoping most of you did with this is we tuck this into the lower back. Yeah. Just as if a bolster. Oh yeah. So that's a nice backward bend and supporting the upper body. Yeah. So what you would simply do then is take another blanket, yet another blanket, and I would roll it up if my pillow is soft. So I'm feeling this pillow is soft. So I'd roll my blanket up, put it on the end of your pillows, and then tuck that in. And let's see how this goes. I didn't try this beforehand. Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, so that's perfect. Yeah, buttocks on the floor, roll deeper into the lumbar spine and upper body supported. And let the arms just be as comfortable and where they are. And also, you saw with that first backward bend, we just held it what seemed like for an endless time. So set the body up as if we're going to hold it for days and days. So you can just relax here and drift off and never come back. And of course, always, I'll just, continually say this, you want to feel safe. So if this increase in compression, even if it's mild, doesn't work for you, always okay to go back where you were. So the longer we're in these, the better. So we're interested in individual, not universal. So the alignment is for you, the compression is for you. So if your lower back is saying less is better, then we just go there. It's really the extended hold and the extended compression that is starting to seep in and ultimately make a difference. I think one of the the healings that is really starting to emerge from this, this collective energy and transformation that we're, all really leaning into, is that we have an opportunity now to explore how to take the energy of disorientation and bring it into reorientation. How to sort of direct energies that have maybe been dormant or confused or disoriented, and start to open them to the light to be oriented into a way that is really supportive. So I had someone ask me such an incredibly beautiful question a while ago. They asked me, why am I not yet enlightened? And the question itself just reverberated through me, that someone would just have really really the passion to ask that. And this is someone that I know very well that has been on a path, for a long time. And so my response was basically, I'll just sort of distill it for you, but my response that there's only one obstacle to seeking this path of awakening, and that is the path itself. Because the imagery and the belief that we're on a path suggests that, well, after one more step or one more practice or one more sit or one more posture, one more hour, one more year, we will then come to this awakening. The reality is there is no one more hour, there is no one more year. So the opportunity to have this understanding, it's very humbling, it's very simple, but it's also very profound. That the obstacle to our seeking, the obstacle to being on the path, is the path itself. So let's just begin to breathe very slowly, a little bit deeper on each breath, and just notice at the breath at the level of sensations. So these raw sensations that we are exploring, not distorting in any way, but just experiencing in their rawness and their directness. But let's do that from the flow of the breath. So don't go right away to the deepest breath you can take or the longest exhale, but each successive breath, let it be a little bit slower and a little bit deeper. And just notice the incredible nuance around this and how different the quality and the sensation of the exhale will be from the quality and the sensation of the inhale. And just notice all of these subtle, refined, sensitive, nuanced, delicate sensations, and just let them be. Just feel them. Let your body, let your breath feel itself. And if the length and the depth of the inhale feels a little off balance with the length and the depth of the exhale, see if you can balance them out. This is a lovely thing to explore, to have the breath itself at the end of the range of motion of inhale and exhale as perfect an equilibrium as you can. Good. So let's begin to find our way out of this backward bend. So again, a little bit of softening first. Make sure you're good. Sometimes it's nice just to put the feet on the floor and just press the pelvis up, 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 slowly up and down. And just this is a lovely way to release. So, whatever passive motion helps here. Again, first of all, we want to feel safe. Second of all, we want to stay connected to this energy of unwinding, expanding after the contraction. And then find yourself in a restful place, and we will take a rest. The Pablo Neruda book that I'm reading right now is called The Book of Questions, and it's a series of his poetry, but all in the form of questions. It was the last thing he wrote before he passed, and one of the questions that he asks in this book is, how many churches are in heaven? And what I've been really saying about the, this, uh, this deeper, if you will, exploration of sensations, because one of the primary misunderstandings about a hatha yoga practice is that we're doing it to get rid of these uncomfortable feelings. Yeah. But what really we're doing is we're doing the hatha yoga, we're putting ourselves in these positions and cultivating a meditative quality so we can see and understand what we're feeling more clearly. And one of the things that I've been doing for years now in this practice, for me, it ties into really how I feel about aging, because, inevitably the system is tightening and there's a practicality to it that we want to be honest about. But one of the primary explorations for me is whether or not I'm feeling brittle. And brittle also denotes dehydrating. So we can do our practice but we also want to be able to feel it in our everyday life. We want our sense of movement to have a fluidity to it. And if you observe yourself and if you observe others in people's gaits and the way they move, and we can break this down further, but really you can notice that you're either carrying your weight, and people are just sort of carrying the bulk of themselves in their gait, or you're moving fluidly. You're moving from the hips and your upper and lower body are connected and your psoas has some elasticity to it. And there's not a stiffness and a brittleness to the body. So on a practical level, this is something that we're wanting to feel the results of the physical work that we do in a sense of feeling more fluid and open. And sometimes this is age specific, but not always, because the way that the body holds tension and contraction is based on, just our biological history, our mental history, the way that we're holding trauma, because most of our feelings get buried and we're not able to immediately process and shake them off. And some of them are historical. So the check-in is not only in the yoga posture and the specificity of the practice, but seeing if your body feels this lack of brittleness and this fluidity and this openness. So, just this way to, come into more body awareness. Okay, so let's come on up, please, if you will. And what I want to do, we're going to change the position of the legs in this forward bend. So I just want to show it first, and then I'll also talk about it when we go into it, but so we don't have to break it up too much and take too much time. So we're going to start simply with our butterfly pose with the soles of our feet together and coming into a nice forward bend. Yep. So we'll stay here for a while, and then we'll come out of that. And then we're going to take the left leg and put it underneath the right leg, and then take that right foot and bring it up and over the left leg. So the knees are coming into somewhat alignment. Try not to sit on this left heel. If you bring it back too far, you sit on the heel, that's not good. You don't want to be going to the left. Then if this is okay, depending on your hips, this is lovely. We'll come forward here. With this right leg crossed over the left, both feet back towards the hips. If you want to contract it a little bit more, tighten it up, you can always lean forward as far as you'd like and bring the knees together. And then come back into it, wondering, why did I do that? I was perfectly fine the way I was, but this will contract into the hips more. And then for this forward bend, depending on your hips, it is nice to have some forward bolstering because it's good to take this one slowly. This contraction is just very kind of multi-layered, at least for me, from my hips right up into my knees and just in a very tight way. So it's better to, like I was saying earlier, to come up to any edge you're feeling and just soften and slow down, and really just use the time to go into the depth. Don't establish the depth ahead of time. But we're not going to start here in this. This is called the shoelace pose. We're going to start with the soles of the feet together and nice relaxed hips, and then initiate from the upper body. Let the weight of the upper body become passive. Let that relaxation and passivity swirl down through the mid and into the sacral spine, and just come into this forward bend. So just to be clear, we're not talking about including the body in our meditation. The body is the meditation. And the true meditation is just simply removing everything that is secondhand. And so let's come on up. And also, if you're feeling like that tightening up and the second part of this is just too much, you could certainly do the forward bend this way again in the butterfly pose. So that would be your choice. Really can't do it too much. But if you'd like to tighten it up, what we'll do, like I said earlier, let's just take this left leg and put it under the right leg. And then we are going to bring the right leg up and over. We're going to bring those feet back towards the hips. Try not to, again, sit on that left heel. And if you want to go forward and bring it in, your choice. And then we're just simply going to come forward again at a very measured, slow, sinking, melting, softening in. Don't go too fast here. Just to really feel what's going on here. And so when you're the wave, this is the play. Enjoy being the wave, but don't forget that you are always the ocean. The water is the same, whether it's a wave or the vastness of the ocean. So this is the game. This is the spontaneous play of awareness. We get to pretend we're a wave. We get to experience being a wave. We get to play at being a wave. And we can even forget for a few years that we're the ocean. But ultimately, we want to remember that we're the ocean. And then we seem to rest for a while as the ocean and enjoy the infinite expansion of that, the resting of awareness as itself, and then the urge then comes again to swell and to be a wave, to play once again. Good. So let's come on out of this, just roll up. And let's open the legs out. And just for a moment, we'll just extend the legs out. And then let's bring the soles of the feet back together and go right back to where we were in this butterfly pose. And if you haven't done that second part I just showed, and this is starting to feel a little tedious on your hips, if you're staying in the butterfly all this time, I would recommend maybe putting something under the knees for a bit and then just release that. And then you can go back into it as you will. I mean, you could just stay into this position. It just depends on how your hips are feeling. Sometimes it's enough just to come out and to arch the back and to stretch the legs. So do not struggle. Good. So let's come on up from here, please. And again, just take a moment to stretch out the legs. And this time we'll put the left leg on top. So we'll take that right leg and pull it in and bring the left one up and over. So on this side, be careful not to sit on this right heel, although, maybe, well, your body will tell you either way. And again, if you want to come forward and tighten it up, then we'll sit back down. Again, don't sit on this right heel. Let this forward bend be very gentle coming into it. This is a very deep, I don't really have to tell you, it's a deep hip opener because of the rotation. So just kind of ease into that, that fascial wrapping of the head of the femur into the hip socket. Very sensitive area there. And very often, this exploration that I'm just suggesting around sensation, these energies to either label or judge or move away from, they often just start as a very vague urge. So this in itself is something to notice. What is this urge? And if we leave this unattended, this urge can often get rather urgent, and then we feel we have to do something about it. Then we're deep into what I'm calling the distortion of the sensation. So be very sensitive to this. Be very sensitive, like, oh yes, there will be urges that will be arising, and can I stay with that urge as a sensation, the purity of what an urge is, and my capacity to notice it without disturbing it. And this, of course, is all done in the container of being very safe. So if an urge becomes urgent and we feel unsafe, we want to appropriately back away from that. But we're not required to follow every urge that arises. Sometimes an urge can just arise and we can examine it. We can, soften it. What is it? And we can just let it then dissipate. Good. So let's come on up from here, please. And let's untangle the tangles and let's lie down.
I mean, part of it also comes from an understanding that, one of our most basic habits is just the mind is habitually, unsatisfied, dissatisfied with the present moment. And so the whole, unfolding from that, this is why we want to create a path. So if we're fundamentally dissatisfied with the present moment, what a lovely thing is to have a path to be on, because then we can disregard the present moment and be on our path that is going to take us somewhere eventually, that everything will be fine. Unfortunately, when we get there, it's still a present moment. So, part of these urges are, deep-seated habits to draw us away from the beauty and the unfolding and the instability and the vividness of the present moment. And how do we experience that? How do we stay with that? So exploring urges as a texture, as an energy is a very good thing to do, because often they're upon us before we know it. And then we're off someplace, and it's very, it can be very challenging to just slow down into just to the rawness of our sensations. So let us come on up, please, so I can fulfill my promise of all these backward bends. And take a choice here. So depending on how your back line is feeling, so we've gone from mild to moderate. This one is rather deep. If the back area is saying, no, I'd rather not, then take the bolster where we started, or your blanket combination, and go back to mild. So that's your choice. Yeah, and that's your back's choice. So confer with your back. If you'd like to deepen this final backward bend, we're going to put the bolster across. Of course, you could sit up on something. So again, I think I showed that earlier, that if it's too intensive, so if we're just sitting on the floor and coming over this cross bolster, the horizontal hip to hip, and you can place this anywhere you'd like, below the shoulders. So this comes more into a thoracic spine. You can wiggle down and go more mid to lower, or get it right into the lumbar area. Something for the head. But then if you're feeling like, whoa, I'd like to try this, but it's a little too deep, just elevate the hips and put a blanket again under. This will elevate them, and then this could be more compatible. And if your body relaxes and opens and invites you to go deeper, you can just remove that. The same thing, often what I'll do with the support for my head is I'll just make sure it's safe in my upper spine, and then I'll take some time and remove that and let the neck go deeper. So just a nice deep backward bend either way, or you can put that back. And again, if you're not, or your back is not good with this right now, then just go back to mild. So we just do it long ways, tuck it in, come over it, and you just let your body know that you're listening very carefully, and you're not trying to force or be concerned with any kind of aesthetic. Yeah, and I'll just say that again because it's very interesting. It has become a very integral part of my own yoga, is to notice an urge and not follow it. Notice an urge and see it as just energy, as just sensation, and just not follow it and just see what happens. Just the noticing of it is very, very powerful. And you can notice that point when the urge wants to become urgent. So what we need to do then is we want to label it, and then we want to judge it and project it. But if we can just stay with that, just stay with it without following it, and just see what it's actually, what is it made of? What is an urge made of? And for that matter, what is the noticing made of? So I'm suggesting to notice this urge. What is the energy of noticing? So this becomes an exploration, a contemplation in subtlety. So let's begin to release slowly and safely. And as you move into a place of rest and a place of relaxation, If you notice any obstacles at all to resting and relaxing, let them rest and relax as well. Stay in Shavasana if you prefer, or sit up in a comfortable position. Enjoy and play, and celebrate, but do not cling. And namaste. Okay then.